As you can hear by this cowbell-like sound, I got me some medals. Those are the 4 medals I got last year in 2023. And obviously, in this day and age, everyone gets a medal for participation, which most of those are. Only one of them is a medal for achievement. This one, marks me as the first female British champion in the super sprint triathlon discipline 2023. Now you can watch the video to work out how I am the British champion in that age group. I'll put it up here. But anyway, that is the only medal that I got for winning something rather than participation. But in this video, I want to break down exactly what I spent in triathlon and a little bit of duathlon, but mainly triathlon in 2023. That's a little bit scary, if I'm being honest. Now it's 2024. I'm not planning on doing triathlon in the same way that I did it last year and the year before, which was not a lot for, people who do triathlon all the time, but in quite a big way. It was my focus of last year was triathlon. And this year, that is not my focus. I may do 1 or 2 multi-sport events, like a duathlon or a triathlon, but it's not my focus for this year. My focus for this year is pretty much 10Ks. For a reason I'll talk about in another video. But for those of you who are doing triathlon or want to do triathlon or, I don't know, just are curious about how much people spend on their hobbies. I'm not an elite athlete. Nobody pays me to do any sport, unfortunately. This is just a hobby of mine, and this is how much triathlon cost me last year. Now, I just want to also caveat this with the fact that triathlon is an incredibly expensive sport, and this is one of the reasons why it's not a focus for me this year. It is very hard to partake in the sport of triathlon cheaply because you need so much stuff and you need to get to those events. It's not like your local 5K or 10K where they're everywhere. There are 3 disciplines in triathlon. Triathlon is swim, bike and run. And you need just a lot of stuff for that. I also haven't included equipment costs in this. So I haven't included bike, helmet, all of those kind of components. I haven't included my wetsuit, although I will tell you how much I paid for it, which was £60 from Facebook Marketplace. And it's an amazing, amazing triathlon wetsuit. I haven't included other stuff. I'm having a bit of a brain freeze at the moment. I've got a cold at the moment, which I'm very, very upset about, but I can't really think about that in the moment. So I haven't included any of the equipment costs because I've accrued them over a few years. My bike is just my regular gravel bike, which I put road tyres on to race triathlon. Although in 2 of the triathlons I did last year, I actually rented bikes for those because they were quite far from my house. One of them was in a different country, and it would cost more to take my bike there, or it was too difficult to take my bike on a train, or having the added risk of having my bike stolen. So I haven't included equipment costs, apart from my trisuit, which I had to have for the World Championships, so I'm going to get to that in a moment. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe because it hugely helps me get these kind of videos out to other people who might like and enjoy them, so that would be really helpful. Thank you very much. So this is how much I spent on triathlon related stuff and triathlon in 2023. Okay, there's a lot. So for events themselves, I did 4 events. I did a duathlon, which was a very local duathlon. So it's quite a small event. I did the Western Park triathlon, which was the World Championships qualifier. All of the triathlons I did last year were super sprint because of a shoulder injury that I've probably already bored you about. So Western Park, which is in the Midlands in England. And then I did the Arctic 1 British Championships in the Eton Dorney Lakes in Windsor. And then I went to Pontevedra in northern Spain and did the World Championships age group super sprint. So Last year I spent on events £368.45. The vast majority of that was Pontevedra. The entry fee for that race was £206. I mean, that was insane. I paid it because it was a sort of once in a lifetime thing for me. I knew I didn't want to compete in an age group triathlon a lot, but I really wanted to do it at least once. So the other most expensive one was Western Park. That was 74-ish pounds. Arctic Tri was almost 50 quid. The local duathlon was £39. And this is what I mean by it's hard to do triathlon cheaply, because that duathlon was 40 quid, but it was a very small local event. And it's that price because they've still got to hire like a venue and have all the marshals there and have, like St. John's ambulance or whatever there, and food and all that kind of stuff. Like they have to, it's an insurance, I guess. There's a lot of stuff that goes into multi-sport events. So you can't really get cheap events. Okay, so that was the events. That's probably the thing that you most think about with triathlon, but actually that is a tiny amount of this money. So let's go now to training. I've included most of my training costs here because they're quite easy to differentiate from other training costs. Most of the time I don't have any, or I have very low physical training expenditure, because most of my training is cycling outdoors on a bike that I already own, or running outdoors with trainers I already own. So there's not a huge amount of cost there. It's very easy for me to pick apart what was triathlon costs, because they were things like Zwift and swimming at the local pool and a triathlon training plan that I had at the beginning of the year. So while I do like swimming, I wouldn't have gone anywhere near this number of times, and I didn't even go as often as I should have done because of aforementioned shoulder injury. But I wouldn't have gone that many times, so I'm lumping this in as a triathlon cost because it is, frankly. I haven't swum for a while now because I'm not training for a triathlon. I don't have a Zwift subscription at the moment because I'm trying to get out on my bike more. But when I was training for triathlon, Zwift was incredibly useful because it allowed me to keep up that fitness regardless of the weather outside, regardless of the time of day or night, things like that. For Zwift, I had that for 6 months and I spent £77.94 on Zwift. Swimming cost me £76.95 for all of the swimming that I did in 2023. That's probably actually not true, because I swam at another pool as well a few times. So let's round that up to probably about £90 I spent last year swimming. And then the training plan I had was £118, and that was a 3-month triathlon specific training plan that I did, and I followed really well from January to March. But then I thought, well, now I know what the training plan is, so now I don't have to keep paying for a training plan. And so I stopped paying for the training plan, and then my training just went back to being super sporadic. So clearly the training plan actually did motivate me to stick to something very specific. My training probably suffered, well, definitely suffered because of that. Then I went to 2 spin classes, so that was £15, and that is all my training. I haven't actually added all those numbers up. I'm going to do that now. Plus 118, £394 on training last year that I can remember and find in my bank statements and, all of that kind of stuff. So, God, let's move on to actual logistics of getting to triathlon, which is probably it's definitely going to show that this is a much more expensive part of it. So obviously you've got your training, which does cost money, but for some people they can do all their training without spending that much money. And then events, big chunk of money right there. The local triathlon is really local, so I didn't really spend any money getting there. Western Park. Oh, I haven't done the hotels for Western Park. Okay, so we drove to Western Park. So the fuel alone would have been 50 quid to get there and back. The hotel, I think, was about £100. Let's just say that whole thing was the travel to and from Western Park and the hotel was £150, £160. So I'm going to add that. So scientific, right? £160 let's go for. That was Western Park. And then Arctic Tri, I took the train there, that was in London, and that was a £67.50 train. The hotel for that was £71.99, which was like a travel lodge in Slough. And then the Pontevedra one was obviously massive because it was in northern Spain. So we had to get there. So that was parking at the airport, £70, car hire, £76.60. The flights were £141.97 for me. My partner came along, but obviously you pay for all these things separately. So my flights was almost £142 minus 3p. Then the hotel in Pontevedra was £270 for 3 nights. 2 nights. No, 3 nights. Yeah, it was 3 nights. £270 for 3 nights. And then we did go down to Porto and spend another couple of days there, but that has nothing to do with the triathlon. That was just a holiday attached to the triathlon, so I could take the pressure off the fact that we had gone all this way for a triathlon. So that was a massive amount of money. In total, the hotels then for, all of these, £341.99 plus that £100 for the Western Park hotels. That's £441.99-ish for hotels. Flights, £142, train, 70, whatever. Car hire and parking, £147. So logistics to get to triathlons and stay at them and everything like that was massive last year. And again, this was because I was doing big events for me. So I did a World Championships qualifier, I did the British Championships, and I did the World Championships in the same year because they brought it forward a year. I did big events, and that was very deliberate to target those big events so I could reduce my costs and still have this real thrill of doing these amazing events. So it was deliberate to go to these kinds of places, and I wouldn't normally go that far afield to go to triathlon, although I did go to Blenheim Palace in Oxford last year. The year before. But normally, I would tend to do closer ones to me, but even so, they're expensive. Well, I think I've done everything. Editing this, I realised I haven't included everything because my trisuit, the official GBR trisuit that I had to have to race in Pontevedra, was £135, plus my bike hire for Pontevedra, which was £160, and then my bike hire for the British Championships, which was £30. So that comes to £225 on top of everything else. But that is included in the final figures of this video. Oh yeah, and then British Triathlon itself, so that cost me £66 for my annual British Triathlon membership, and that allows me to race. It gives you slight discounts on race fees in the UK, by a couple of pounds, because you're insured by British Triathlon. But mainly I needed that level of British Triathlon membership because it covers you to race in World Championships and European Championships. So £66, which I actually sort of was paying anyway because I was getting 5%. One of their perks was you get 5% off Sainsbury's. And that has saved us a lot of money over the last few years. So all of those costs come up to last year. Oh my God, this is actually scary. When I was adding this up earlier, I couldn't believe it. In my head, I was like, I probably spent £1,000 or something on triathlon, which is a lot of money, but this was my main hobby last year, and it was included going to all these cool places and stuff like that. But as it turned out, when I tallied all this stuff up, and I've now added on that £160 from the Western Park trip, this is without food, by the way. This is without food in any of these places. So feel free to add on another £200 for that. I don't even know what that was. Last year I spent on triathlon £1,958.13 for 4 events. Yes, I am the British champion, but I am just quite a slow triathlete. I'm very much an amateur triathlete. I'm not particularly good. I do them for fun. Yes, I went to the World Championships, but it was age group World Championships, and the people at the top of the age group are incredible athletes, but people like me, it's not that difficult to get into those kinds of competitions as a woman, especially. The field is just much smaller. The competition to get those spots is much smaller. While this was my main hobby last year, I'm not an amazing athlete or anything. I just have a lot of fun doing triathlon. So that was quite a lot. That's £2,000, not including any food when we were in Spain or when I was in London or Western Park, any of those places. So this doesn't include food, although they do often give you free bananas when you finish your triathlon. And in fact, the duathlon was a donut duathlon, so I got a donut at the end of that. It was a £40 donut and a lot of suffering, let me tell you now. So I hope this was insightful. I hope this gives you an idea of how expensive triathlon is, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it because of that, because we all have different things that we want to spend our money on. I live quite a frugal life in other parts of my life, so the fact that this was £2,000 cumulatively sounds like a lot of money, and it is a huge amount of money, but I don't regret any of it because I had a fantastic time in all of those events and doing all that stuff, and I'm a much healthier, stronger person for doing it. But it's just interesting, I think, to find out how much this stuff actually costs and then factor that into how you target your races and how you target your training. And, you know, maybe you can cut back on expenses with not having a Zwift subscription and instead forcing yourself to go out the door and ride your bike in real life. But yeah, I hope that was really interesting. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.